Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen Robinson, and I am your host. And today we have a very special guest, Jon Lightfoot, who's the founder and CEO of Strategic SEO Solutions. He has over 20 years of marketing experience in both brand side and agency side. Jon is also an SEO expert with decades of experience in working with many SaaS brands, B2B enterprise firms, Fortune 500, and startups alike. He and his team are hands-on in managing their clients' on-site technical SEO, as well as off-site SEO, CRO, and overarching analytics. Additionally, Jon sits on the Customer Experience Advisory Board at the University of California Irvine. Welcome to the podcast, Jon.
Thank you. Very happy to be here today.
Yes, definitely excited to have you on, and we appreciate you joining us. Today. We're going to be talking a little bit about, SEO optimization, specifically for e-commerce businesses. Talking a little bit about one of the main reasons, or one of the main questions that comes up with businesses is link building, and how the effect of link building on SEO, specifically for e-commerce brands, because there's always a lot of buzz about building links. We know, Google puts a certain amount of weight on it, but things change, and anytime their algorithm changes, people start to get nervous and start to worry about, okay, is my particular strategy still effective? And that always happens every few years. So hopefully you're gonna enlighten us a little bit on that. And but before we do get into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. It's true. I do have just about 20 years of marketing experience. And about 10 years of it was spent agency side, 10 years brand side. And I've had the opportunity to be, robustly integrated into companies that do specialize in e-commerce, and also service level based businesses, and even incubators and things of that nature. So I've touched a lot of spaces, and before the pandemic, I was leading the marketing efforts for Mathnasium and about their 1,000 plus global centers, and when the pandemic happened, it was kind of the segue into this notion of, I'd prefer to be off ground and a little bit more insulated, and in doing that, I thought to myself, gosh, I could do anything at this point, as it relates to marketing. I'd been touching traditional, linear TV, everything, right? SEO, of course, and also social media. And I thought, this time I'm going to go deep instead of wide. And the depth that I chose was SEO. I've been a student of SEO for 17 years, almost 18 now, in fact, and it's always changing. It requires constant learning. And so that's I've been doing solely that now for years, ever since I made that transition. And yeah, very happy to be doing it.
Okay, that's awesome. That sounds good. It's an exciting field because it's ever changing, as we all know, with digital marketing, SEO. You got to be on top of it. Not only when we're thinking about SEO, search and optimization, of course, there's the side of the search engines and a lot of the technical aspects that, you have to think about within your own website. But then, there's other things that come into play with browsers. There's certain things that are that you have to work with, and they're ever changing as well. So it's an exciting world.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think the big catalyst for me was this kind of notion around leveling the playing field. So often when working with companies, it can fold into this whoever has the deepest pockets kind of wins scenario, meaning if you're doing paid media, even paid search, right? Once you exhaust your budget, you go dark. And so whoever has the most budget to stay within that visibility for the longest duration often can really dominate some of those spaces. But with search engine optimization, it isn't about who has the deepest pockets. It isn't about just throwing money at it. It's more about methodology. It's more about strategy, and where those culminate to give you a consistent level of visibility. And that's what I love, is that as companies big, companies small, middle, wherever they are in their maturity, in their stride, they can all compete just depending upon that methodology and strategy that's happening. And that opens a lot of visibility, a lot of doors for growth for companies.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. It's really any business can compete and kind of get into the game. It's true. Of course, it is a lot easier for some than it is others. Of course, a lot of other companies have a lot more resources they can devote to some of these things. But at the same time, they're still kind of all following the same principles, or at least we think they are. But that's a whole other discussion.
Right.
But maybe we can touch into it a little bit later. But we're going to go ahead and stay focused on the podcast and the topics that I kind of alluded at the beginning, which is always a concern with businesses when we're thinking of SEO, is link building. And so in your whole world, your worldview of this SEO space, how do companies safely build links, that can help boost their domain authority and, really grow their brand and their online presence?
Yeah, it's interesting. I recently gave a webinar on that subject, and it was an hour long just on that topic in a lot of ways.
Okay.
But to crystallize it down, it's a great question that you're asking. Is if I could bring it down, crystallize it down, I would say two things. One of which would be consistency. I think one of the biggest issues that that can occur with SEO and just about any tactic is this idea of let's execute upon it and then step back and let that kind of ride and watch the progress and decide if we need to do any more of it, and then maybe do a little bit more and step back. I talk to lots of SEOs, lots of companies, in their SEO teams and in their strategies. You'll often see a target. Let's say that target is 20 links per month. So the new month starts, they race to get to the 20 links, and then they step back and they wait for the next month.
Right.
There is not a consistency to that. And they asked John Mueller not too long ago, what is the secret to SEO success? And I thought, gosh, that's a really hard question to answer. And he did it brilliantly by just saying consistency. And it's true. What I don't think Google's really looking for, they don't want to see necessarily, is these needle on the record movements, meaning everything goes ripping north and then just falters and falls back off and then back up again and falters off. You could say the same thing about a content strategy. It's better to have this slow drip, consistent, methodical nature to what you're doing. Same thing with link building. When we're building links for our clients, the discussion circulates more around each week. What are we doing? Each week, each and every single week, outreach with press, these sorts of things, curated lists and link acquisitions, but every week a continuation of the link velocity. So I think that's a big part of it. The second part of it would be really dig deep into the metrics. So often when we build links, the caveat to is it a quality link or not is what's the DA, right? The DA stands for domain authority. So you'll see link builders selling links saying, hey, for X amount of money, I'll get you a DA 50, a DA 60. And a lot of people are very impressed by that. But that is literally one metric of quality discernment. And you have to go far deeper than that and really peel back the layers. Of the metrics in particular, for example, maybe it's things like, well, what's the PA? Like, what's that interior page authority, right? How long has the site been in existence? Like, what's the age of the domain, right? What's the spam score? That's huge. You have to know the spam score before you decide whether that link is going to be able to provide you any long-term value. And other metrics too, Moz Trust and citation flow and trust flow, and all these things have to be synthesized in to discern if that link is actually going to provide you real value.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of times I think, businesses kind of get caught up on just on that domain authority, the DA, a lot of people that do link building or are kind of in that whole game. I mean, I'm sure you've been on these lists. I've been on these lists where I'm getting these emails from people saying, yeah, a DA 80 link for, they're either selling it or they want to do a link exchange. And,
Yeah.
we've all kind of been there. And then, like you said, if you're not very careful and do your due diligence, then, even though it may have a high DA, there could be some other issues there. Like you said, it could be a high spam score. And then, then that could be more detrimental to you than if you didn't even have the link. So
Exactly.
you have to be very, very careful. But yeah, people do get caught up on that. Now, when we're in this whole link building phase, as you mentioned, I think it's very important that that everybody understands that you have to be consistent. Like you say, you can't just kind of go through these spurts. We're saying, okay, this quarter or this month we're going to build 50 links, and then on the next quarter or next month we're going to be focusing on something else. You got to be consistent with you doing it. I'm glad you pointed that out. That's very key. But in general, doing this activity, what are a few basic, do's and don'ts when it comes to
Sure.
doing this stuff?
Yeah, that's another great question. Let's start with the do's. So on the do's side of the fence, I would say, do take a qualitative approach to this, not quantitative. So maybe that ticks both do's and don'ts. But the qualitative notion, right? So this isn't about, and it's funny, I'll hear people talk about, oh, here's my competitor, right? They have 50,212 links because they've been around for a long time. I guess I need 50,213 to beat them. It isn't about that. It really isn't. This isn't about that quantitative, the number game. So what you want to do is you want to take a qualitative approach. I'd rather see companies have fewer links, but of higher quality than just have it be a numbers game. So you really want to make sure that what you're doing is qualitative. The other do, I would say, is going to be think about the thematic contextual nature to the link. So in other words, if a website is talking about cars and car parts, and you're selling on your e-commerce site shoes, it wouldn't behoove you, even if their domain authority was in the 70s and everything else was created equal, meaning their spam score was low and trust flows high and things of that nature. So by all means, it's traditionally quote unquote a good link. But if that doesn't have that relevance, that contextual nature to it, you don't want to be there. On that page. So you want everything to have a rhyme and a reason. You want it to be natural. You want it to be beneficial. If the person reading the content finds it and they click through, you want to make sure that from the starting point to the end point, there is a dotted line of rhyme and reason. So the anchor makes sense. The landing page that they land on when they click the anchor is contextual to the anchor. Everything needs to have a flow of consistency. And I think those are some do's. Some don'ts are in my estimation these days are going to be things like, don't just get, like we talked about, don't just get, impressed by the DA. Go deeper than that. In addition to that, don't just focus on any one tactic for link building. So don't just do guest posts. Don't just do link acquisitions and insertions. Really mix it up a bit. Try and do some skyscraper techniques. Try and get into some curated lists. Do some press outreach. Like actually acquire links in a variety of veins, not just any one particular vein. And here's one more don't. Don't just look at at anchors in a very siloed way. Think about diversification in the anchors as well. So what that really means is, if you're trying to rank for very specific keywords, as we all are, don't just support the anchors of those keywords, which is called exact match, right? Also support your brand. Also support naked URLs, where it's actually the full string of the URL, the https:// those sorts of things. Think about the categorical anchors. Think about value proposition anchors, right? And so the other don't would be, don't avoid exact match. There's a lot of companies out there who think, well, I can't just get a link and have it just be exactly the keyword I want. That's exact match, and that could throw alarms to Google. No, that's not true. It's true if that's all that you're doing, But here again, if you have balance in your anchor diversification, it's fantastic to give that contextual relevance of that keyword back to the page that you want it to rank for. So I think diversification in those anchors is very important as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, those are some awesome, do's and don'ts for sure. And you know, following those things, I think, is just a really kind of a great way to get started with it. And speaking of getting started, let's say a business, an e-commerce brand, maybe they already are doing some paid advertising. They're doing, let's say, Facebook, Google ads, Instagram, things like that. They're maybe some paying also for some content placement here and there, but they really haven't launched like a serious, effective, link building campaign. And they're listening to this podcast. They read blogs all about it and they know they need to do it. So I know the big question that most people are going to have is, okay, can anyone on their team do link building, or is this something that they have to hire out? And if they do have to hire out, should it be somebody that has prior experience doing it?
Well, I would say, just about anybody can be trained to do link building. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think there should be some training. I don't think you want to put the keys in the hand of somebody doing it for the first time. The reason why is link building can be vastly impactful and effective to the growth of visibility in organic search. And it can really empower a lot of new traffic to the site, a lot of intent-driven traffic, and really it can propel revenues. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, if it's not executed properly, it can cause, manual penalization, truncation to visibility, and it can actually be, detrimental to a website. So this is not something that I would just easily entrust into the care of just anybody. I would make sure that the individual that is executing this type of initiative has a background in it, understands how to evaluate the metrics, understands the whole notion behind the keyword strategy and how that maps to the page level and how that builds a link building strategy that's going to be supported in that balanced way. And I think there's also this background in understanding how do companies obtain links, and how do they do it to some degree at scale. So how do you perform the organic outreach? Who do you outreach to? What should you be saying to them? Cost is going to come into play. There's no doubt about it. Even if you have an internal team that, members that you're tasking with this, the editors of the websites are at some point in time going to start discussing, well, if you are looking to obtain a link on our site, here's the cost that would be involved. And we could talk more about that if you'd like to, but understanding how to negotiate that cost, should you be paying for links, all of these things have to be evaluated, and that typically does require some experience.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with what you said initially, that anyone can really be trained to do it. You definitely have to have some training. You can't just kind of throw somebody out there and say, do some outreach, get me some links, and that's it. Yeah, so you definitely have to be trained. And there's a process involved with it because, they have to be, of course, familiar with your content. They have to be familiar with what types of things and articles that you guys have that are going to be available to link back to. And, they just overall have to have, I think, a good grasp of the English language, I think, to be able to take a look at other pieces of content and figure out kind of where you can do some type of link insertion that makes sense. So yeah, all of that is very true. So you definitely have to have somebody, that is that's trained up prior to doing it. One thing I wanted to, as far as link building is concerned, and wanted to kind of circle back, just to kind of put that out there, as controversial as this is or not. You did mention that, of course, every business has really kind of like an equal playing field when it comes to this whole SEO world when we're thinking of e-commerce businesses. But from what I've seen, I don't know if that's entirely true. And of course, businesses or Google is never going to say this, but from things that I've seen, there are certain brands that I've seen that it seems like they can get away with certain things that aren't necessarily adhering to web standards or best practices. I'm not the only one to echo this. People that have always commented about some of the major portals, like for instance, we have Forbes.com is a good example. And I've seen examples of different articles and different advertising things that they do on site with regards to pop-ups, with regards to the way their pages are structured, that are not necessarily of the best standards, I guess you could say, and adhering to the best standards. And so what I wanted to get your opinion on is, do you think some of these major companies, these major brands, does Google kind of turn a blind eye to certain things that they're doing because either they're paying a large amount of money or they're just such an established brand, Google is not going to question what they're doing? What do you think?
Yeah, it's I would say that it really is an algorithmic discernment. In other words, I think Google as a corporation isn't making that determination at a company level. I think their crawlers are going out, and I think that their sites are under the same scrutiny and algorithmic evaluation that any site would be. But that's where it folds back into what you just said, and it technically supports what you're saying, which is that sometimes they can get away with more. But why? Well, the reason why is when the crawlers take that pulse, when Google's algorithms lay on top of those domains, those companies, what they are seeing is somewhat of a newer algorithmic addition to this whole equation, which is this EAT segmentation, which is this expertise, authority, and trust. Really, it bubbles back down to authority. So the Forbes and the major players, whereas the health of their site, like the SEO health discernment, might be lower. In other words, they could literally have more broken links as an example, or maybe they don't have as cohesive as a keyword strategy, or maybe they weren't really ideating as creatively around metas, the descriptions and titles and alt tags and all the things that we would do. Maybe they're not doing that, and you look at it and you think, gosh, their health score is not nearly as good. They're still outranking. How? Well, they have a lot of expertise, authority, and trust. And today, that is the epicenter of a lot of the discernment about who is outranking, who is outperforming. Well, Google's going to say there's a lot of companies out there with a lot of opinions that they are very good at what they do. Let's look at the trust and the authority around them. And so that's, interestingly, a dotted line back to link building, which is why link building is so effective. Why are we really doing it? It's not necessarily so much to garner the link, interestingly. It's so that we can garner the trust. You see, when we talk about things on our website, when we have keywords baked into the pages and the titles and the descriptions and all the things that we're doing, Google's crawlers can see that. They can pick that up and they make note of it. But do they trust it? Because you've said it, because I've said it, because people, they don't necessarily trust it at that point, but they made note of it. But when other people talk about you in the same way you talk about yourself, and if those other people are trusted, you start to lift a bit of that trust onto yourself. And now Google says, okay, well, you told me that, but they're saying it as well. And I trust them from their domain authority, and that starts to impart upon you. So as you build, as the companies in e-com begin to build their EAT, their expertise and authority and trust, they can then start to outrank, even if we take a look at their fundamentals underneath that maybe aren't as healthy as others. So it's really about having that definitive trust. Those massive corporations are constantly in the press. They've been around a long time, and they're thought leaders in their spaces typically, and so they have that trust and authority, and that lets them kind of move forward in a way that newer startups or smaller brands may not be able to do. But they can build it consistently, and that's part of the efforts of the link acquisitions, is really just garnering that trust and thought leadership.
Yeah, that's a great explanation, and it makes a lot of sense because, yeah, like you said, most of this is all an algorithm, and the way things are ranked, it's not like they have, an army of of course they do have a large team of people that, do work on Google's end, but as far as the rankings and everything that we see displayed all of that is really just an algorithm that's been coded. So it's not like you have people manually looking at this site. I'll say, okay, we need to rank this site for number one for this particular keyword. Let's make that adjustment. Yeah, that's not happening. That's just not feasible, and it wouldn't make sense. It would be cost effective to do something like that. So you're totally right. I think what it is that trust factor that a lot of those big brands have, that is not necessarily allowing them to get away with certain things, but I guess in a way it kind of is. It's just that trust factor is so large. It's kind of outweighing any of the other maybe technical things on their site that may not necessarily be, up to speed or the best that it could be. So I totally get that. Makes total sense. As we get ready to wrap things up, I'm thinking about link building. In your experience and with what you're doing with your company, or just what you know in general, what are some businesses your e-commerce businesses that you're familiar with that have done some successful link building, and what are some results that you can speak to that they've had doing various link building campaigns?
Yeah, I touch a lot of spaces with link building constantly. I mean, I probably spend more than half my day every day just working on link building initiatives for a variety of e-commerce companies. Some of those companies are in the product space, and some of them are in the service space, but they all have benefited from the link building initiatives. And so whether it's food, or fashion, quite frankly, link building has been a really pivotal segment to building that organic impression share. One company that I work with that I think would be worthy of discussion in this vein would be a company that sells gift cards. So this company sells gift cards. So the keyword difficulty, the KD that most people think about for the keywords that they are trying to rank for, are literally 98 and 100. And I know that because I work on it a lot, but also we were reflecting on this just a couple days ago. If you're looking at ranking for specific keywords, part of that equation is what is the KD, meaning how competitive is it going to be to even outrank. And we're looking at moving this gift card industry into the top 1, 2, and 3 positions. Okay. And that's been something that we've been able to do. And the way we were able to do it, I mean, we are going up against a massive industry, Visa gift cards and just gift cards and, all the like that are just massive, right? With these upper echelon KDs of 98 to 100. Literally through link building, we were able to move into the top positions. And the structure to that, it's somewhat simplistic in nature. Consistency. Quality over quantity. I mean, we are really looking at, and that doesn't necessarily mean always DA 60, 70, 80. It doesn't mean that. They can be DA 30s and 40s and still have enough strength behind them because their spam scores are low and their websites have been around for 12, 15, 18 years. They have good traffic coming into the sites, things of that nature. And it's really just about thematic relationships contextually. So every link acquisition that's happening, if you look at the URL structure, it might be a piece of content that's talking about the best gift cards for 2022, what to give for a wedding anniversary this year, creative ideas around gift giving, gift card giving, things of that nature. So this content is already being talked about, indexed, and trusted. And now we're part of that narrative moving into the space. But and I'll say this one last thing. The EAT algo that we talk about, it also folds into something called your money or your life. And so e-com is very critical in this space because when you have a website designed to be transactional, there's an exchange of money happening. It's going to be really important that you have the trust and authority. And certain verticals are far more important than others to meet that metric, and that would be something like education, any sort of education, healthcare or health-related products, finance, anything finance-related, legal, anything along those lines. Those verticals and niches within those industries have a far deeper discernment of what they need to have from a trust and authoritative space in order to even garner ranking or visibility. And link building has allowed us to do that. Affiliate, really, last thing I'll say real quickly, affiliate's massive too, because a lot of times affiliates are giving reviews. We do a lot of work for a lot of review sites. Why? Because if you're giving a review, your opinion of a product, well, the first question that Google's going to say is, well, and what makes you an authority in that space to give the opinion that should really lead people transactionally and parting with their monies for a product? So, really helping a lot of affiliate sites to outrank, because we're building their authority. So when they speak about a product, they have that trust. And so, yes, a lot of different verticals there.
That's awesome. And yeah, thank you for sharing those, real world testimonies. And it just sounds like you've also echoed what you said earlier, in that it's really about this consistency over the, quantity. You want to be consistent. You want to, you want to have a mix of, getting links from higher domain authority sites versus some other smaller. It doesn't have to be, DA80 and all of that, because it's not feasible, first off, for you to consistently get links like that. It can be difficult. So it just seems like, slow and steady wins the race. I think that echoes in a lot of cases. So in link building as well. Well, Jon, it's been awesome having you on. I really appreciate you coming on. I've learned a lot. I know our listeners have as well. Lastly, before we let you go, I always like to switch gears just so our audience get to know you a little bit better. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think we'd be interested to know.
Well, I'm a lot taller than I look. No, I'm just kidding. That's not it. It would, let's see. I don't know. When I first started my professional career, I was a clothing designer and by trade. And so I designed clothing. It was business suits and business shirts for men. Oh, wow. Well, I got some women too, but it was 99% men that was requiring the service traditionally. And and so that was how I got my start in the business world. And I used the funds from that to start a fragrance business, which I did for 10 years, and it had eventual acquisition. And so that's kind of how I got my start into the business world. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. So that does seem like quite a switch, going from the clothes designing, the fragrance space, into digital marketing. So it sounds like you kind of had a previous life to what you're doing right now.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, I had to sign a non-compete when I sold the business, and I thought, well, I can't do anything for myself anymore. Well, maybe I can help other companies, and that was the segue to agency world. Yeah. Gotcha.
Well, that makes sense. It makes sense. So you can avoid having any type of competition issues. You're just helping other businesses, even if they're in the space that you were in before. So, great way to do it. Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing that as well. And lastly, before we let you go, if there's any way, or if our listeners would like to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about link building or any SEO or digital marketing subject, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, by all means, happy to chat about it. Feel free to reach out to us via our website, which is strategicseosolutions.com. And actually, you can email myself or the team through the website, and even my Calendly. I just have it baked right into the website. So if anybody just wants to jump on Calendar, talk about their companies, their growth, their strategy and plans, happy to do that too. So feel free to visit strategicseosolutions.com. You can reach out anytime.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jon. We appreciate it, and thank you for joining us on the E-commerce Marketing Podcast.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level, but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.